Number 8, the mummy insurance policy. Think about how paranoid you have to be to look at death and say, yeah, I don't trust it. Better take out some afterlife insurance. That's basically what ancient Egyptians did, and their plan was a little more involved than writing a will or buying some fancy tombstone. Nope. They invented mummification, which is basically corpse taxidermy, except you're the one paying for it. The Egyptians believed your soul wasn't some floaty little ghost that left your body at death. Instead, they thought your spirit had multiple parts, like a messy breakup between body, spirit, and soul. If your body disintegrated, one part of you, the ka, wouldn't have a place to chill. Without a body, you just wander around like a confused customer in a store that just closed down. Creepy. So they got creative. The process was part science experiment, part gruesome cooking show. First, they yanked your brain out through your nose with a hook. Why? Because they thought brains were about as important as pocket lint. Your personality, memory, intelligence? Nope. They believed all of that lived in your heart. The brain was treated like an annoying appendix, so they just scooped it out and tossed it. Then came the drying. Bodies were packed in natron, a natural salt, to suck out all the moisture. Imagine being marinated like jerky for weeks on end. When you were nice and crispy, they stuffed you with sawdust, linen, or resin to make sure you didn't collapse into a sad little bag of bones. Sometimes they even replaced missing parts with carved wooden stand-ins, because heaven forbid you show up to eternity missing a toe. And the face. Oh, they took special care there. Painted fake eyes, makeup, and masks that made you look vaguely alive. They were basically inventing the open casket funeral, but with more glitter and resin. The end goal? Your preserved body was like a cosmic key card. As long as your physical shell stuck around, your soul could recognize it, pop back in, and enjoy eternity. In their minds, this wasn't creepy. It was practical, like making sure your Airbnb rental is still standing when you show up. Number 7, the anti-vampire burial. Now, picture yourself on cemetery duty in medieval Europe. You dig into the ground, and instead of a normal skeleton, you find one with a brick wedged in its mouth, or a rusty sickle lying across its neck. Congratulations, you've just stumbled into the paranoid world of vampire burials. Here's the thing. Death wasn't the final chapter for medieval folks. It was a potential horror sequel. People believed certain corpses could rise again, sneak out at night, and chew their way through the living population. And unlike the sexy movie vampires we think of now, these were more like bloated corpse-like creatures who just slurp your blood and spread disease. The fear made sense, in a way. People didn't understand decomposition. A body left in the right conditions could swell, ooze fluids, and even make weird noises as gases escaped. To a medieval villager, it looked like Cousin Greg was bloated because he'd been out snacking on livestock. Logical conclusion? Better stuff a rock in his mouth so he can't chew anyone else. The solutions were wild. Bricks, stones, or bits of pottery shoved into mouths. Corpses nailed into coffins so they couldn't push the lid off. Others buried face down so if they did wake up, they'd just dig deeper into the earth like some confused zombie mole. And in some cases, they decapitated the body entirely, because that's always been the universal nope button for the undead. These rituals weren't rare, either. Archaeologists have found multiple anti-vampire graves across Europe, proving that communities really did go out of their way to neutralize their neighbors, just in case they decided to stage a comeback tour from beyond the grave. Number 6, the immortality diet. You've probably scrolled past some influencers selling miracle health drinks. Maybe you've even tried one, but ancient Chinese emperors took this obsession with longevity to an apocalyptic level. Enter alchemy, the ultimate attempt to outwit death with a recipe book. Alchemists claimed they could create elixirs of eternal life, often mixing ingredients that sound like they came straight from a medieval poison control hotline: mercury, arsenic, lead, and even powdered jade. If it glittered, glowed, or burned your throat going down, congratulations, it was probably considered a ticket to immortality. and emperors bought into it, literally. They drank mercury cocktails, smeared it on their skin, and swallowed pills that were equal parts shiny and deadly. Some emperors didn't just die, they died glowing, their organs soaked with poison like radioactive sponges. There are actual historical records of emperors collapsing after chugging these immortality brews, proving that the road to eternal life was paved with really bad science. It wasn't just emperors, though. Wealthy nobles tried this too, chasing the dream of cheating death with jade dust smoothies and arsenic-laced tonics. Spoiler: immortality never arrived. What did arrive were seizures, organ failure, and some spectacularly early funerals. Still, the belief was so strong that even centuries later, people kept searching for a magic substance that would keep them alive forever. The irony? The quest to live forever killed a lot more people than old age ever did. Number 5. Binding the dead. Here's a creepy thought. You're dead, buried, and finally at peace. Except, not really, because your family just tied you down like a dangerous package. Welcome to the ancient tradition of restraining corpses. Across Europe, the Middle East, and even parts of Africa, archaeologists have uncovered skeletons with bound hands, tied feet, or pinned beneath heavy stones. The reasoning? Pure paranoia. People feared the dead might rise again, not as elegant ghosts, but as angry, rotting nuisances. In some graves, corpses were staked through the chest or weighted with massive rocks. Others had their joints broken or tied in awkward positions, almost like a cruel prank from the living. It wasn't about respect. It was crowd control, making sure the newly dead didn't stage a comeback. One eerie discovery in Poland revealed skeletons with sickles pressed against their necks. The idea was simple. If you tried to sit up, congratulations, you'd just decapitate yourself. The fact that entire communities took time to invent these corpse traps shows just how deep the fear of restless dead ran. And it wasn't just superstition. In places where disease spread fast, people genuinely worried that a bad death, plague victims, criminals, or social outcasts might return as bringers of chaos. So they literally restrained the dead, like locking your front door against burglars, except the burglars were corpses. Number 4, the spirit phone booth. If you think forgetting your wallet is stressful, imagine forgetting the fare to the afterlife. Ancient Greeks weren't taking that risk. Enter the custom of burial coins, often called Charon's obol. The belief was simple. When you died, your soul had to cross the river Styx to reach the underworld. The ferryman, Charon, wasn't doing charity work. No coin, no ride. Instead, you'd be left wandering the banks of the river for eternity like some tragic hitchhiker. So families tucked coins into the mouths, hands, or graves of the dead. Sometimes it was one coin, sometimes several, like a weird ancient version of tipping. Wealthier burials had more, just in case Karen started charging surge pricing. This wasn't just a small ritual either. Coins have been found across countless Greek and Roman burials, proving that people genuinely believed money had power even beyond life. Forget to pay up, and you weren't just broke, you were spiritually stranded. The obsession with making sure the dead had fair money shows just how transactional their view of death was. Dying wasn't free. It was like calling an Uber. You needed the ride, and the driver wasn't letting you in without payment. Number 3. The zombie backup plan. Mesopotamians had a very different idea of death. To them, it wasn't peaceful rest, it was red tape. The afterlife was basically a grim bureaucracy, and if you didn't play by the rules, your dead relatives could claw their way back to complain. That's why families made regular offerings of food, drink, and goods to the deceased. Graves were stocked with beer, bread, and whatever else the person liked, as if the dead were picky restaurant patrons. If you failed to keep up the offerings, the soul might rise and torment the living. This wasn't a rare superstition either. Texts and tablets from Mesopotamia describe spirits coming back to punish negligent families. Hungry ghosts, angry ancestors, restless dead, all demanding attention like divine landlords. In practice, this meant death turned into a subscription service. You didn't just bury someone and walk away. You kept up the offerings, year after year, as if your late uncle had signed up for a never-ending picnic plan. Forget to renew, and you risked a haunting. To them, the line between living and dead was blurry. Your family obligations didn't end at the grave. In some ways, they became even more demanding, because nobody complains louder than a ghost who missed dinner. Number 2. The eternal guard dogs. Dogs may be man's best friend, but in ancient Mesoamerican cultures, they were also man's afterlife chauffeurs. The Maya, Aztecs, and other groups believed that when you died, the underworld wasn't a straight shot. It was a maze of rivers, mountains, and dangers. To get through it, you needed a guide. And who better than your loyal dog? That's why archaeologists have found burials with dogs laid to rest alongside humans. These weren't random sacrifices, they were spiritual partnerships. The dog's role was to lead the soul across treacherous rivers and deliver them safely into the afterlife. Sometimes the dogs were painted or adorned with items, almost like giving them uniforms for their eternal job. The most famous example comes from the Aztec belief in the Xoloitzcuintli, a hairless dog thought to be a supernatural guide. Families often buried these dogs with children or important figures, trusting the animal to guard them forever. It sounds sweet, but the undertone is dark. Imagine living your whole life with a pet, only to realize your bond wasn't just about companionship. It was a down payment on your afterlife travel plan. For the Maya, your best friend really did follow you everywhere, even to death. Number 1. Fake tombs and decoy corpses. And finally, the ultimate outsmarting death tactic, tomb trickery. Because if you were rich or powerful in the ancient world, death wasn't just about spiritual survival. It was about making sure grave robbers didn't strip you bare the second you were in the ground. Pharaohs, emperors, and kings all had the same problem. Their tombs were giant neon signs screaming, "Treasure inside," so they fought back with architecture. In Egypt, massive tomb complexes were built with fake passages that went nowhere, secret chambers hidden behind walls, and even decoy sarcophagi designed to lure looters away from the real burial. China took it even further. The tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the guy with the terracotta army, is still sealed because ancient records describe it as booby-trapped with rivers of mercury and hidden mechanisms. Basically, the original do not disturb sign, but lethal. Some rulers even had decoy burials built, fake tombs filled with junk treasures and false corpses. The real body was buried elsewhere, in a location known only to a handful of workers who often didn't survive long enough to spill the secret. Paranoid? Absolutely. Effective? Sometimes. This practice shows that for the ancient elite, beating death wasn't just about reaching the afterlife. It was about keeping their worldly power and wealth safe, even if it meant turning their grave into a labyrinth straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. That's all for today. I'll be making more videos like this, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them.